listeners. Welcome to Plano's Political Pitbull Podcast. I am Esther.
And I'm Ruth.
And we are recording this on Tuesday, September 10th, because yesterday the Plano City Council passed the highest property tax bill increase on single-family homestead residents in 20 years. The vote was 7-1, and the lone no vote was our very own Councilman Rick Deli. He decided that it was not fair that the bulk of the tax burden was going to be on single-family residences. And he stuck true to his principles, and this will be his last budget vote because he is termed out, and we are going to miss him here at Plano's Political Pitbull. He has never disappointed us. He has always stuck true to his promises and his principles, and we could always rely on him to try and do what is best for the residents. And he's worked very hard to even have people who are on different sides come together to some kind of compromise. So please go and thank Councilman Riccadelli if you get the chance. Please reach out to him. While we're very grateful to Councilman Riccadelli, we are sadly disappointed in Councilman Shelby Williams. But I am not going to speak for him, and we're not going to speak for him. He will make his usual post-council meeting video, and he will explain his reasonings. At that time, he tried to explain his reason during the meeting, so you can go to the city website and you can watch the meeting yourself, and he has some graphs and charts there, and he will outline his reasonings a little bit better than he did, because I must say I had to watch the meeting a couple of times before I fully thought I understood what he was getting at. But I do hear that he will make himself even more clear on his post-council video.
Can you... so you kind of fast-tracked to the who voted yes, who voted no. Can you kind of explain what they voted on specifically?
So, yesterday they voted on the budget for the next fiscal year, which will start in October. Cities and governments, they don't go on a January to December fiscal year. They are an October to October fiscal year. I don't know how that started, why that's that way. It just is. So I don't try to understand it because it's not changing. So they voted on the proposed budget that will begin in October. And with that budget comes a tax rate, a property tax rate. And that tax rate is based on, usually it's a few cents. I believe it is approximately 41.76 cents. And that is per 100 square feet. So obviously, if you have a smaller home, you're going to pay less than somebody who has a larger home. And it's based on your evaluation that you get from the county every year. So every year, a homeowner will get, or any property owner will get what the county deems your house is worth. And then each taxing entity will have a rate where they will go and they will say, all right, well, this is your rate, and then this is how much you're going to owe us.
I love how our system with how we tax punishes you for having things. Like, oh, you worked hard, you did overtime, and you got paid more than usual. We're going to tax you more then.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to punish you for it. Oh, you decided to get a nice large house for your growing family. We're going to punish you for it by taxing you more.
Yes, they punish. Governments always seem to punish success, wealth, capitalism, working hard. The more you have, the more they take. That is with every government. And it's, I think, awful. I firmly believe taxation is just theft, because try not to pay. We've seen a lot of people who didn't pay and they're sitting in jail.
We love tax evasion.
Yes. No, we don't love tax evasion.
It's an ironic love. It's like how I said I love how they punish you for being successful.
Oh, it was a sarcastic.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I don't actually love either of those things.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So, we have talked about this at length on our podcast here over many episodes. They had a chance. They had a chance to lower our tax rate by 1 cent. Now, that would not have cut your property tax bill. It would have just made the increase not as high, okay? Because as long as your property goes up in value, your taxes are going to go up. It's just the nature of the beast. But governments can lessen the pain of the increase if they so choose to. They can try to make property taxes stable, not so volatile, not a lot of peaks, not a lot of lows, but just kind of make it, if you had a graph, a stable, slow incline. They don't choose to do that. And this group did not. I mean, if I had a graph, this thing would be a shot right up for this year. Well, technically next year. As I said, for me, it means I have to pay the city $300 more, or a cart full of groceries. For others, for the average, it's going to be around $183, but that's the average. We know that some people will have less and some people will have more. So it just depends on the value of your home, the size of your home.
I don't know why you expected anything less. I mean, why would any government entity want less money? It's just more money for them to waste.
Yes.
I said we were talking before, and you said to keep this in my brain because I just blurted it out, and you're like, oh, that's good. And it was that government doesn't budget for the money they have. They budget for the money they want. So they're going to want more money.
That is true. They will definitely want the max that they think they can get without having to go to the voter for the voter approval rate. Now, the city manager was smart in that he kept the tax rate, or he wanted to keep the tax rate the same as 2024. Because I think he knew that if the tax rate went up, that would look even worse for the city. But he also said, well, we've made cuts. The thing is that they really, when you look at the numbers, I don't see a lot of cuts.
Well, maybe it's like government cuts where it's still raised, but it's just less than, it might have been.
Well, actually, yes, that's true. The government, that's a cut, but he kept some things the same. I don't know what that would that be a cut in government? I don't know.
I don't know.
That might be a freeze. But one area we have discussed on our program here is the economic development. They could have easily gotten $6 million out of the proposed $8.5 million, which was the same as last year. So if you're going to cut to the bone, that number should have gone down, but it did not. It stayed the same. And that 8.5 is going to go into a fund of over $43 million currently, to be handed out in corporate welfare to companies like Raising Cane's, which we talked about in a previous episode, that got over $6 million to move from one area of Plano to a few blocks down into a new building. And they get basically what would have been worth 1 cent of the tax rate. Every $6 million is 1 cent of the tax rate. So all we wanted was to lessen that proposed amount to $2.5 million and give that $6 million back to the residents in the form of a actual rate cut. They would have still gotten more money than they got the previous year, the city.
It's just 1 cent less.
It's just 1 cent less. It would have at least lessened the amount that people have to fork over. So maybe instead of $200, they only have to fork over $150 or $100, depending. Those are just estimates. I don't have that number for sure. But at least it would have shown that they were trying, that they weren't taking a whole cart full of groceries, as one speaker, the lone speaker, was also very disappointed to see that only one person actually showed up to speak, to ask for what we've been asking, a cut in the tax rate.
Well, I feel like over the years, as the council has not listened to people, to voters, less and less people have come to speak. More
They've given up?
Yeah, like they've given up. Progressively, they've come less and less because it's like they're feeling like how I'm feeling, where like I'm not even surprised. You know? What's the point of trying? Because they're not going to listen. They're going to do what they've already come in with their decision in mind, and they're not going to change it.
I can see that, yeah. I mean, it does mean you have to go online, you have to register, and then you have to actually go down to where they're having their meetings. And for some people, when it could mean you're going literally across the city.
And then you have to wait for your turn, which who knows how long you could be waiting for. And you only have 2-3 minutes to speak?
3 minutes unless the mayor cuts it. But
so yeah, what's the point? You have to do all of that, and then they don't listen? I mean, people are probably fed up. I know I'd be.
I can understand that, but you are stating for an on the record, because people do watch those meetings. And so I know it's easier to write an email and tell them to vote no. I don't know how many emails they get or got on this. I also don't know how many people registered their opinion but chose not to speak. So you could do that too. You don't have to speak, but you can register your opposition or your approval.
Who knows how many people even do that, though? Because it still feeds into the same idea of, I mean, I remember we were looking on Facebook and we just kept seeing all these people having the same I don't know where we were on Facebook. We kept seeing all these people talking about the council and being like, I'm so tired of everything. And I don't feel like they listen.
Well, you know what you could do? Vote them out. Mayor's up for re-election in 2025, folks. So as you are paying your property tax bill, if you have to pay it through your mortgage, every month you write that check. Remember, the mayor has done that to you. And vote him out. He's actually the only one up for re-election. The other 3 folks are turned out. So, like I said, we're losing Anthony Riccadelli. Prince is termed out, and so is Smith. So they will have a legacy of raising people's taxes to the highest amount in 20 years. That will be their legacy. And that's to me, that's a sad legacy. I wouldn't want that. For the mayor, he basically wrote the push card for his opponent last night. Because anyone who wants to run against the mayor, all they have to do is put on their push card or their mailer or their door hanger, Mayor Munns raised your taxes highest in 20 years. Vote for me and I will keep taxes stable. There's the push card. Probably more eloquently than I just did. But that's going to be tough to explain away. And if he wins, well, you get the government that you voted for. If the mayor should win re-election.
I just know people are fed up. It might not have even. It was some public social media thing where we just were seeing random people, a bunch of people, just being like, they don't care.
Well, they feel like they're not being heard, and when you feel like you're not being heard, you
grow apathetic.
Well, I wouldn't say apathetic, but you stop complaining to the people who are not hearing you. I mean, why do you think the legislature took up the property tax issue? Because the council, their city council or government, whatever form they have, was not listening to them, was not hearing them, was not looking out for them. So, even though the legislature has nothing to do with local taxes, they went to their state legislature and they said, look, my local government is making me go broke. I have to sell my house because I can no longer afford the taxes on my house. I don't want to leave my home. I don't want to pick up and move. I don't want to downsize, but I can no longer afford my home. And I need your help because these guys aren't listening. And in the past, if there was a local problem, they would say you have to go to your local government. Well, now, when they say that, everybody just kind of laughs and goes, we've done that.
That's why we're here.
Been there, done that. We're coming to you. And the legislature has tried. They've passed a few things, but I think there's only so much the state can do. Because at the end of the day, this is truly up to the city councils and city governments. And if you keep them in, if you keep the rats in, then there's really not much that will change. Nothing will change.
How do you, I know you say like to you vote him out. But it just seems like this is an ongoing thing no matter who's in the seats. Like, how do you know who to vote for that's not going to just do the same thing?
Well,
that's the problem. Because it just seems like this is just what government does no matter who's in. This is just their thing.
That's a good question. It honestly doesn't matter if they're a Republican or a Democrat, because what happens is they get in there, they get trained by city staff, and eventually they may feel the pressure of city staff and city manager.
Or they might start to believe what they're telling them. Like, this is how we always do it. This is how it's done.
Yes. Well, the people we put in there, Anthony, not we, I should say, the people that Plano put in, Anthony Riccadelli and Shelby Williams and Maria, not Maria too, what am I saying? Rick Smith and Lily Bow. When they first got there, Lily is now, she lost her election, so she's not there anymore. But when they were first there, they were really pushing hard. And it was very contentious for a while, because I think, you get there and you're like, I'm going to change everything. We're going to clean this up. And then you get a lot of pushback. And not much.
Yeah, because you're the one trying to change the status quo, and no one wants to change the status quo.
Exactly. Yep. It's not easy. But you have to keep voting the way you said you were going to vote. Okay? And circumstances may change, but principles should never change. If you are a person who believes in low taxes and not making people sell their home because they can no longer afford to live in their home, you must, in my humble opinion, do what Councilman Riccadelli did. He voted no on the budget, and he voted no on the tax rate, because he knew that there were places that could still be cut. He even offered, and Rick went, I don't want to cut anything from economic development, with a faulty reason that, well, business to business sales tax is good. Well, as the...
What does it have to do with anything?
Exactly. He doesn't understand that businesses don't pay taxes. They pass that right on to their consumers. As the woman who came to speak pointed out, she used an example of a painting company. She hires a painting company to paint her house. They're charging her for the paint that they bought at Home Depot. And they're charging her the full amount, sales tax and all. So he's not saving us anything by doing that. He honestly said that the burden then is shifted from the residents. Like, no, it's not. You're actually making the burden worse.
Prerequisite for being a politician, you have to understand economics.
That's what I would like to see. I mean, I know economists generally do have the personality. Well, the stereotype is they have a very boring personality. I don't care. Okay? I want somebody who knows and has studied Milton Friedman and knows that you cannot simply tax people to death. You cannot give corporate welfare handouts to businesses and expect that they will stay forever. Because guess what? When Raising Cane's, after their agreement, let's say, after they've fulfilled their agreement, okay, and they outgrow the building that they're going to be in, guess what they're going to do?
They're going to move.
They're going to move to another city who will give them another economic development money. I often wonder if that's what Dr. Pepper did, which is now Keurig. We had Dr. Pepper was here for many, many years, and they are now off to Frisco because they got a economic development agreement, and they're moving to Frisco. I'm like, gee, when they first moved here, did we give them economic development? Well, now they're just abandoning us. Well, they're not abandoning us, but they're moving. And they're moving because it's good for their bottom line. I can't fault them for that. I mean, they would have to be quite crazy to pass it up. But this is what we have. You're going to bribe companies. That's what you're going to get. Because they're just going to go to the next person who's going to give them a better bribe.
This is what cities are doing now, just bribing companies.
Yes.
Sad.
Well, states do that too.
Still sad.
It is. It's not necessary. And
it's like, we're not good enough to attract businesses on our own. We need to bribe them to come here. Instead of making our city or state the prime real estate for these companies.
I got news for you. They would come here anyway. Because if they have the choice, let's say no state's going to give them anything, okay? If they had a choice to stay in California, where they're getting taxed to death, or come here, where there's no state income tax, where there is very low business taxes, they don't need to be, quote unquote, bribed. They will come here willingly.
Well, that's my point. It's like, instead of ensuring that your city/state, whichever we're talking about, is optimal for businesses to come, you're just like, nah, we're just going to bribe them to come over. We're just going to use corporate welfare. We're just going to give them money.
Yeah, if they wanted to entice companies to come here, lower the business tax even more. They'll flock here. They don't need you to hand them a check. That, by the way, financially, they don't need.
It's just scummy.
It is. It's scummy. It's sleazy. And basically, you have, and I'll say 6 people. I'm not going to, I'll let Councilman Williams explain himself. But you had basically 6 people who had an opportunity to pick residents over multi-billionaires and millionaires. And they picked the billionaires and the millionaires. That is, one thing that Bernie Sanders does say, right, is that we should not, the residents should not be paying for millionaires and billionaires. I will agree with him on that. And that's what we're doing, folks. We are now forking over more money so they can give money to companies who don't need it. And it is sleazy, and it is wrong, it is immoral. And I don't think it was asking too much to put the residents first.
That's what they're there for. That's what people voted them in to do, to put them first.
Yes. You were supposed to put the residents first. You're supposed to keep the residents safe. You're supposed to look out for them. And they didn't do that. They're looking out for people who aren't even here in most cases. Because in most cases, the companies they're handing over corporate welfare to are companies that have to move here. The Raising Cane's money was kind of unique in that he was already here.
In essence, they're kind of looking out for, quote unquote, their bottom line, because they keep looking to the future of like economic development and like more people coming here and companies coming here, because it gets them more revenue, right? In theory,
11 years in the case of Raising Cane's, but yes, it will. It could. In theory, let's take Raising Cane's. Okay, Raising Cane's, $1 billion corporation, right? And they gave them money, and they have to redo an office building that's already standing, and they've got to put in enough improvements so that the building is valued at $20 million 11 years from now. First of all, I think that's kind of risky because you don't know what anything is going to be worth in 11 years. For all they know, the commercial market could crash, and you could put all of these improvements into a building and it ends up being a loss. That is a risk. I mean, people do that with their homes. You can update your home and still lose money on it, depending on when you sell. So when they're betting that the commercial market will go up. But again, that's 11 years from now.
But I'm just trying to think of like, what's the benefit in their mind? Because they're always looking to like the future. They're always looking to like, we always talk about them wanting to turn Plano into a city. I'm just trying to think of like...
So the benefit, what they're seeing as the benefit is, okay, if they turn that building into a $20 million building, we will get the tax revenue on the evaluation of that building.
So yeah, it is about them getting more revenue.
Yes, it is. But they're hurting the residents right now for something that is 11 years away.
But my analogy still works.
You are correct. You are correct. They are looking out for the money that they're going to get in the future. No question. But don't hurt the residents who are here still now, today, to do that. And that's what they did last night. They said, we are going to put this money, instead of lowering the tax rate by 1 cent, we're going to keep that money in the bank for some future company that may come along and want to move here and build a commercial building. They did it on a maybe. there's no guarantee that a company will move here or build a $20 million building.
I don't get why.
Or any large building.
I don't get why they even do that. Like, city council. I don't get why city council would do these kind of moves, because they live here. It affects them, too.
That is a very good question that I cannot seem to wrap my head around. The only thing I can think of
Every decision they make affects them.
The only thing I can think of is they really truly believe that they are doing what they think is right, and they are extremely misguided. Or, and I have zero proof of this.
We've gone into conspiracy theory territory.
Yes, I have zero proof of this, but I know a lot of people feel that they are getting donations from developers who want to come in and want to develop Legacy West and Shops at Legacy and all of these mixed-use things.
You mean the kickback theory?
Mm-hmm. It's a kickback theory. Now, we know developers do donate to their campaigns and have in the past. And up until recently, they were allowed to vote on things that these developers wanted. I mean, they were voting on 4 applicants that had donated to their campaign. It looked very sketchy. So now, thanks to Lily Bao, there is a cap. So if somebody donates, I think it's $1,000 to a council person's campaign, the council person must recuse themselves from voting on anything that comes before them if that person who donated is an applicant. Mm. So at least it takes away the look of impropriety. They must recuse themselves, which I think is perfectly fair. I mean, it looks kind of sleazy when, you get a donation from a very rich guy who happens to be a developer, and then he comes and he wants a zoning change, and you're going to vote on that? That's just sleazy. I'm sorry. That's not right. So at least that was changed. Well, it's been a disappointing start of the week. And if you are disappointed like I am, remember to show how you feel at the ballot box. May 2025, folks. Mayor is up for re-election.
Not that far away.
Yes. And when you're looking at the candidates to fill the rest of the seats, ask them how they feel about corporate welfare. Ask them what they would have done. Would they have kept the amount of corporate welfare the same, or would they have lowered the tax rate by 1 cent?
I don't even think they believe they're doing corporate welfare.
Well, that's what it is. You could call it economic development, corporate welfare, corporatism, fascism. A rose by any other name is still a rose. In this case, corporate welfare by any other name is still corporate welfare. You are taking from one to give to another. That's welfare, folks. In this case, it's corporate. So ask them how they feel about that vote. See what they say. Well, that is going to be it for us today. Like, share, and subscribe if you have enjoyed this episode. This is Esther.
And this is Ruth.
For Plano's Political Pitbull, signing off.